It's the Regular Expressions podcast. Join Noah Heldman and Ben Griswold as they talk about technology, consulting, and life. In episode 20, Noah and Ben talk with their old pal, Dave Holbrook. Dave is an experienced technical architect, business strategy expert, and all-around good guy. Hi all, it's Rachel, and I'm excited to hear the next round of answers to the 5 questions.
Hello and welcome to the Regular Expressions podcast. Good to see you again, Ben. And we have a special guest here today, Mr. Dave Holbrook, who Ben and I have known for right around 20 years. It seems like everyone so far we bring onto this show, we've known for 20 years. That's just how we do it.
You need to be you need to be this old to ride this ride.
Ride this ride. Yeah. So eventually we'll get to people we don't know at all, but for now, we're sticking with what we would know and trust. So Dave, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We have some questions for you today, but just wanted to see, first of all, how you're doing. How's everything going?
I am well. I've moved from San Diego up here to Oregon. That was a big transition for us. I kind of transitioned out of the consulting life. I went to work for a startup and then a big corporation. I'm back at a startup, owner.com, and it's exciting. I love the change-ups. I love doing new things. It's fun.
Yep, the nature of consulting, right? That's why I loved it from the beginning. New problems, new people every couple months, it seems like, sometimes a little bit longer. But yeah, big part of what was enjoyable about it. Ben, I think you have some questions.
I have questions. Thank you, Noah, for prompting me to ask questions. That's why we're here. Hey, Dave, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but for me, you have 2 personas. So the first one's kind of weird because I'm probably older than you, but you've always come across to me as the wise uncle. Right. I feel that you have knowledge across the board and it's always fun and it feels a little bit like leading me in the right direction, but not saying exactly what that direction might be. So first, Uncle Dave, here's my question for you, because the second persona is architect. Right. I feel that you've been an architect ever since I've known you. And I'm wondering what led you to architecture?
I think that's a pretty good question. I would say architect and architecture are roles I adopt sometimes. It's not like what I do all the time. But I kind of try to meet people and teams where they need to be met. Sometimes that's as an architect. What leads me to architecture, though, as opposed to like maybe people management or maybe organizational design of like how orgs work, is it's technical, and I love technical challenges, but it's also strategic, and it's also looking at like business constraints and constraints about how software is going to change over time, which is maybe something that a lot of engineers don't spend a lot of time thinking about. They think about solving the problem right in front of them, but they don't think too much about solving the problems that are going to be either second order effects of the decisions that are maybe made now, or effects that are going to happen because of scale or resiliency requirements or requirements around compliance or other things. I love being able to take that step back 2 or 3 steps, maybe take a lower resolution view of what's going on, 10,000, 20,000 foot view, look forward in time, and then help guide everybody so that, the decisions we make now make sense later and don't have to be like redone whole scale. Cause like, I don't know about you guys, I really don't care for redoing what I've done 6 months or a year from now because we didn't think everything all the way through. And, probably got some internalized trauma from earlier in my career where that happened.
Probably. We could do a whole episode on past professional trauma, I'm sure. Yes. What you were just sharing, it seems like technical concerns mostly. Right, like that you dig into, but you also work kind of facing with the business customers a bit. Is that right?
Absolutely. I, especially here in the later kind of last decade of my career, I interact with C-level folks all the time. And because, they're the folks that are making the strategic decisions, and they have, the decisions they're making have, technical impact. Sometimes it's, hey, are we prioritizing growth right now? Or are we prioritizing customer retention? Those two things actually have big architectural implications sometimes, depending on what you're doing and how you're writing the code. It impacts like how much technical debt you're willing to assume to get from point A to point B. Maybe because, for existential reasons for the company, which is like the not fun kind of problems. But, but maybe it's the fun kind of problems. Hey, we're doubling every 8 or 9 months, and we're going to be 10x where we are now, a year and a half from now. What are the technical problems we have to solve to get there? If you don't have the context about where the leadership is thinking about the software you're writing is going to be, in a year or two, it's hard to stay ahead of those problems, and you don't want to be reacting to them after the fact.
Yeah, and every company is a technology company these days, or have been for a long time. So all of those decisions end up just very much intertwined in the business decision. So one answer to the question that Ben asked and that you really already provided is that it's architecture has a technical component to it, but it's really because it represents the complexity of the business as a whole and where it's going that I think is what makes it so interesting. And it's funny because I don't really call myself an architect anymore, even though I have to play that role. I certainly would if it came up, if someone said, hey, we need an architect. And I was like, okay, I can do that. I can play that role. But I think of it in terms of technology strategy and the business side more than I think of architecture. Do you feel like there's a distinction there that I might be missing?
So there's part of it. There's like this, there's the strategic stuff, but then if you go like, if that's like the 20 or 30,000 foot view, there's also the 10,000 foot view of architecture of like, I have to pick specific tools. And those tools, every choice you make is a choice you can't make in the future. It's like, it's a constraints game, and understanding like maybe the technical constraints that you're operating under, maybe understanding the team that you have to work with and the things they know and understanding the budget you have, what can you build and buy, all those things kind of like are like at the kind of next layer down of technical architecture. Once that kind of like more strategic architecture is kind of, defined. I like doing that too. And, I'm lucky in the role I'm in right now. I not only get to do like the top level, that middle level, I'm actually get to, build out the first versions of some brand new things, doing greenfield stuff and, doing the actual implementation work too. Like I've always been like a small A architect, I would say, in that I'm not, very into prescribing things to people and leaving them a big stack of documents and walking away. I'm very interested in the pragmatic realities of whatever the kind of decisions I help folks arrive at.
Yeah. Do you find there's pushback because you're open and you have maybe some strong opinions, or at least a psychologically safe space where developers feel comfortable coming to you and saying, hey, why do you recommend this architecture? What about ABC? Did you think of that? How does that tend to go?
Yeah, absolutely. Happens all the time. I encourage it and I love those conversations. First of all, like I think one of the cool things about doing anything for a long amount of time, which I don't hear anybody talking about much, is like you've got sort of crystallized knowledge after a while. Like you've made all the mistakes that can be made, or many of them. You've tried all the things, and you found some things that work, some things that don't work, and you start to kind of develop meta patterns around those things.
Yeah.
When you work with someone who's maybe got experience from a different kind of perspective, like maybe they're a business person rather than a engineer, or maybe they're an engineer, but they're at a different place in their career, or they have a different background solving different kinds of problems. You get to like spend time taking that crystallized knowledge and then decrystallizing it, explaining the reasoning, explaining why it makes sense to you, explaining why maybe their approach is like leaving some things on the table that maybe need to be addressed, things like that.
Yeah, makes sense. When you're in that consultant role and you're brought in to look at and recommend architectures for a company that you have a lot less context for, and then you have the situation where you're in a startup or even in a larger company, but you have a lot more context and ownership of that architecture. What are the big differences in those two models?
It can be radically different. I'm going to give you some anecdotes maybe that can cover this. So my last place was, large software organization. My role was in the platform team. It was around observability. And we went through a big, there was a desire to reduce the footprint of the number of observability tools we had, which was many, and shrink it down to a lot fewer for like operational reasons and also like, monetary reasons. I worked with, I came kind of in at the end of the process of like just defining a decision about what tooling to actually use for the company. And the tooling that the team had picked, I was 100% for. It was like a good choice. It was a good technical choice. It went up all the way to the leadership, all the way to the highest levels, and got rejected. And says, no, we're going to go with what was like option 3. And it had to do mostly because of things out that were non-technical. They were like the kind of relationship they had with the vendor, the kind of like contract they could form with them, the longer term vision of where they saw some of the competitors that were chosen were like basically a bunch of like leadership decisions. Like came back and like, no, we're doing this. And it's like, okay, that's fine. That's the decision. You got to commit to something. Basically, having a decision and picking one good thing is better than having no decision and floundering around with like no decision. Yeah. So like you commit to it and, you can be successful with it. So like, that's like a large organizational kind of reality. You're never in a large, multi-thousand engineer organization, you're never going to be the decider. Like even if you're the CTO, you're not the decider. You can get overridden by the board. You can get overridden by the CEO. Like you answer to somebody at every level. And now I'm at a startup and we've had to make some hard decisions. Those decisions were more like, we're trying to expand out into a new area. All of our code is written in one specific language. The kind of the direction we want to go really doesn't have the support for what we need to write in that language. We need to introduce another language for this new target platform. And that means we're no longer a one language company. And that has huge implications in terms of hiring and training and a bunch of other things. We spent a lot of time talking about that. We ended up going with that decision, but that wasn't an easy decision and it wasn't approached lightly. But we're in a growth organization. We're growing fast. We're hiring a lot. It didn't seem like a big deal to hire some extra people to like cover this new area versus if you're maybe in a legacy organization, it's a lot harder to introduce brand new things. So, I'll give you the consultant answer. Depends.
Yes, you can say that to everything, and this would be over in about 5 minutes, but I'm glad you didn't. I think it's really interesting to hear the word startup, which immediately just creates a picture in my mind. And I think of startups with 2, 3, 5 total people, or even like the solopreneur who can do all the things, build a SaaS product, put it out there, market it, be the salesperson. That's a startup too. But startups can be 100 people and still actively growing and still be in startup mode, depending on how much traction they got, how quickly. So maybe just where are you in that startup journey, and where did you start?
So I've been with Owner for about 7 months now. When I started, there were 60 engineers. They just secured Series C. We're at about 100 engineers now.
Okay.
We're on a really good trajectory. We're growing incredibly rapidly. We're expanding our product offering like in every conceivable nook and cranny of the space we're in terms of like providing software to small business owners in restaurants. And, it's incredibly satisfying. It's incredibly satisfying because it's small enough. I get to talk to customers. I get to see them use our software. I get to do the cool stuff you get to do at a startup. But we're also dealing with like the scale kind of problems you have to deal with in a larger organization, and like the organizational problems that you have to kind of think about as you're growing fast. So I'm having an amazing time.
That's great. Oh, I love it.
Dave, a lot of what you just touched on is tied to experience. I'm thinking about the case where you have your team backing an architectural direction. You back the team. It goes to the higher ups. Higher up says, nope, we're going to go with option 3 because of XYZ. And you probably, with the amount of experience you have, kind of graciously accepted that. You have to choose a decision where I know if that was me and maybe 20 years ago me, I'd probably be kicking and screaming, well, why'd you even bother having us go through the exercise? Now, that's me. That's something that I used to do, which I don't know. I would probably give I give my old self some shit over now, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
Is there anything, if you were to go back 20 years, you would roast yourself on as an architect, as a software engineer, as a consultant? Tell me more.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me give you the anecdote, and then I'll tell you what my takeaway from it is. The anecdote is I was working for a brokerage. You've got some background in that too, Ben. I was working for a brokerage. My team I was leading was developed an option trading platform for them. It was for institutional investors. We rolled it out. Part of that was like an option quote system for getting snap quotes for options. And this is like massively more, this is the early 2000s, massively more volume in terms of quote volume than you get from like just regular equity quotes. I designed a system. The software worked. It worked in our QA environment. It deployed to production. It stopped working. It had a memory leak. It would just go for about 3 hours, then crash. It was costing hundreds of thousands of dollars a day in lost revenue. I had to fly out to New Jersey to the data center to see what was happening. And I realized that our IT folks who would not allow us to see or touch these systems for security reasons had deployed it in the way which I explicitly said in the deployment instructions not to deploy it. So they had, it's kind of boring stuff now, but they basically put in a remote DCOM component when they should have installed it locally. And it would cause a big memory.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Good old DCOM. It's been a while.
Yeah, so it's many years ago, long time ago. So that's the anecdote. And, I lost sleep over it. It was very stressful. It wasn't fun. What I've realized, and this is, I think the whole industry's come to this, but like operating software is a different skill than writing software, but you are not immune from that skill as a software engineer in the modern world. If you write it, you run it, and you have to have the skills to operate it. And you have to invest the time and the knowledge to operate it. And you have to invest the time and knowledge to make sure it's installed correctly. You've got the correct observability. You've got a way to scale it up and scale it down when it needs to, that you can deploy it without causing downtime to folks. There are engineers who live in this kind of like fantasy world where they're, works on my machine. I can write it. It works great. And I used to be one of those folks. And so I would go back and roast myself. It's like, you own the operation of this. You don't just own the software writing process.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, in companies we've all been in, the model has been set up kind of like Conway's Law, where you just had groups of people that had those clear responsibilities and you had to hand off to them. So you had release management, you had change control boards, and it felt like your responsibilities did end at development because you had to hand it over to that team, like you talked about in your anecdote. We had similar ones at financial organizations where, okay, the admin team is responsible for install configuration changes. If they change the wrong thing, which they did in a case of a project I was on, that opened the floodgates for this, recurring transaction. And it's like they changed the wrong value from false to true. And it's a real problem because you do have these operational responsibilities, but if you're not communicating effectively with each other, the whole system breaks down. And I feel like developers learned a lot more with the advent of cloud and DevOps becoming more operational people had to learn about development and more devs had to learn about ops. Like it kind of came together. I didn't know a lot about networking when I started working with cloud, but you learn a lot of things really quickly when you can't get things to talk to each other because ports aren't open or VPC wasn't created properly, whatever the case might be. So there has been this merging of skills to a degree, but then I think that's something AI can't do yet, right? AI can write some code, and it can even deploy it if it's to a known cloud provider, but there's a whole lot of other things that have to go into productionalizing a piece of software, just like you're talking about.
What about you, Ben? How's your journey around operating software gone over the years?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I do think that once DevOps kind of came into play, and this is just CI/CD, really, just some basic things, I really do feel it enabled the engineer, but it also very much is around the organization, right? Working for a big brokerage firm, for example, one of my takeaways from that is a DBA's job is the hardest job in the world. Because what we were doing is a bunch of engineers writing all of our stored procedures. Day of deployment, we couldn't deploy to production. We sent it over the fence to the DBAs to say, go ahead, run these scripts. And then they're left with what's going on. And no one was doing anything wrong. It just wasn't the right way, right? And it was, it was unfortunate. So I feel that I went from this not really having control of managing the system once in production to managing everything once into prod. And that's also a double-edged sword, right? You deploy something, you need to continue to develop features. You have to keep going with new stuff and monitoring, taking care of business, run the business they conflict sometimes. So yeah, it's tricky. It's been a journey though for us for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say. And along the way, Dave, we've just picked up a whole bunch of tools. And I'm wondering, as you've been going through your career, like how do you decide, and this is kind of an umbrella question, how do you decide what tools belong and what tools might not belong? What tech should you bring forward and what not?
So do you mean specifically to a specific team or just like me in general? Like, I can me in general, I can talk about things I've abandoned that I used to love, but, I can also talk about teams. Okay. So I used to be the world, I used to, really be a fan of, like if you go way back to the 90s, I used to be a fan of like 4GL languages, Power Builder, things like this, like just, you do the database, you get forms, victory, like rapid development. But then, you try to like one little edge case and you like end up writing all of your code that ends up being edge cases. So like I just abandoned that. I would never like recommend that. Those languages don't even exist anymore. Right. But that was like, I was an early proponent of, a bad technology. Sure. I guess. For teams specifically, I've never been just the very first person on the boots on the ground. I guess there's some of the consulting gigs. Almost everybody had some idea of the tech stack they were comfortable with and they wanted. And whether that was like some Node.js based thing, or TypeScript, or whether it's like .NET or Java or whatever, I got consulting cured me of caring at all about the actual stack as long as it could get the job done. If it can't get the job done, then we'll have a conversation. If you want to write a device driver in Visual Basic, okay, well, that's just not going to happen. But aside from that, I'm pretty much open to everything. And there's tools I like more than others. I prefer more strongly typed languages to less, mostly because it's just easier for me to navigate the code. But like, I can work in Ruby. I can work in C#. I can work in C++. That doesn't matter. What matters is like, usually it's what the team's already comfortable with. Yeah. And then it's what's, if you're going to add anything new, there has to be a long discussion about that.
Yeah. I like that you immediately went to team. That's right. I mean, as a leader, as an architect, sure. It's like, this is what I want. This is what I feel most comfortable in, but that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Right? Your teams aren't going to move quick, especially if you're pushing against them. Yeah. Great answer.
I'm curious where architecture fits with that sort of team model and how much it depends on company size. Because we've all been in places where they have a dedicated architecture team and it ends up being a gate that the team has to go through, that architecture has to approve, and they'll come back and say, oh, you need to change this to this. There's times when I think that has value. There's the model of embedding an architect in a team. And then sometimes you even have a hybrid where each team has a lead who has architectural skills. They're in communication with a separate architecture team that has, the vision of the entire company's architecture. Maybe you're talking about 20, 30 different Scrum teams and you have to standardize on a major architecture. What do you think are the key decision points for how to structure architects and the architecture group?
I think the first thing that's a key informer is just the overall size of the organization. So if you have 5 engineers and you're like early stage startup, there's no place for somebody who's just like drawing diagrams, and espousing standards and picking tools and stuff like that. All architects are often in the gateway of. So, you get to 50 or 100. That's the situation we're at now. My current startup at Owner, we've got 2 principal engineers, and I think both of us put on the architect hat, at least 20 or 30% of the time. Mm-hmm. And that's, so we fall into the role, but we're also doing other things. We're ICs, we're talking to leadership, we're doing, organizational stuff, we're lots of more technical leadership hats. Then at the last place I was at, where it's, 3,000 engineers, globally spanning, radically different product groups. You have like literally layers of architects, at the executive level, at the division level, within a division level, embedded with teams. And it was all, not all, but like a lot of what you were doing was just keeping aligned as best you could with what everyone else was doing on core strategic things, and then working with your teams to like get them to line up behind that so that, you're all more or less marching in the same direction, which is in and of itself just like a huge technical coordination challenge. Mm-hmm. So it depends on the scale. It depends on how broad your product offering is. It depends on, the kind of technical challenges you're up against. I said it depends like 4 or 5 times, so I'm clearly in consulting mode.
Crushing it.
You have to look hard at the situation you're in and then make those decisions. Sometimes it's a hard call. I actually think there's a huge downside to like fully dedicated architects who are fully disconnected from day-to-day operational stuff. Yeah. But sometimes you have no choice. It's like it's just so hard to get aligned with leadership on like the big swath kind of questions that's a person's full-time job, and they're busy navigating that kind of like upward, pressure from upwards and pressure from downwards to like find and navigate some kind of path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've worked with a couple large organizations where they do have architectural review boards that meet monthly. And you need to get through the architectural review board before you can release anything into the upper environments. And that was really hard on the teams. Yeah. That was, all right, well, we got to keep moving forward. We don't have approval yet, and we're not sure if we're going to squash down or what additional functionality or, constraints need to be concerned. It was really hard having a board like that isn't, really available in timely manners.
So if you're in a large organization like that, what you learn is the political aspect of this role, which is you never show up at that meeting cold. Sure. You've had one-on-ones with all the key decision holders, and you've made sure that like what you're thinking is at least broadly aligned with what they're thinking and what they know, so that like you show up with an answer they have to say yes to, ideally. Mm-hmm. But that's its own, set of work. Which literally I've had people ask me when I've had that kind of roles, like, what do you do here? What is your role? What value you're adding? It's like, well, when you get to the ARB, they're not going to say no. That's what you get.
That's right. Yep. Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so funny.
Because I had the same answer, and that was one of my.
I'll take that as a compliment.
career fails is going into an ARB just prepared to the hilt with everything technical, but not having reviewed it with anyone except the technical audience that I had already approved it with. So immediately politics come into play. You have group leaders who are not part of architecture. Why are you at the ARB? Oh, because you're here to put a stop to this politically. And in some cases, like really quite nasty, where someone would come in specifically with the plan to shoot your idea down so they could lift up their own resources and create more opportunity. So some really hard.
That's rough, especially when you're a consultant and you're kind of coming in from the outside and you have no political capital to spend.
Yes.
It's that's a fun situation to be in.
12 against 1, typically. Yes. I'd like to know what you've seen that can go wrong with teams. I'm saying like specifically around testing, documentation, just hardening their solutions, addressing tech debt. Like, why are teams doing it? Why does it matter? And what are they typically doing wrong?
Let me talk again. I guess I'm in anecdote mode today. So I'm going to talk about a team I worked with a little while ago, 2 or 3 years ago. So when I joined the team, they had just had a series of layoffs, and they'd been whittled down to like 2 or 3 engineers from a team of like 10. They were just in purely keep it running mode. Then they slowly had started to add 2 or 3 or 4 more engineers, but they just stayed in like keep it running mode. And what that meant was the technical debt was just piling up and piling up. It was accruing interest. There were, jobs running in AWS that like nobody knew how to restart. And to restart it, they were like bringing down entire environments and getting them up. And they were just doing like the hackiest, craziest stuff just to keep the wheels on. And they couldn't get out of the mode. And so that I think is like one of the dangers is like you've acquired so much technical debt, and they can happen for like legitimate business reasons. Like businesses go through business cycles, there are layoffs. Things get, attempted to get like, offshored, and then that didn't work, and it comes back and it's in worse shape than it was when it left.
Yes.
Like a million reasons. Software can always get, like it's, bit rot is real. It's the world changes, and if your software doesn't change the changing world, it gets slowly and more defective. And my strategy for that is like, make it clear to everyone, the leadership around them, like, look, this is a very dangerous situation. This is on the border of just completely failing. If it completely fails, we're in real trouble. Let's get out from under this. So like, let's talk about, increasing the staff even more. Let's talk about getting some more senior folks in here, not just like, L2s or L3s, which was like a lot of what was there. Let's then start to divide the team up into the folks kind of building the next thing that does what this does, but is like maintainable, and the folks that are keeping the wheels on, and let's like rotate them in and out so that they have experience about what's going on, but they're also like part of building the new thing. And like, let's open up some space for that. It took a lot of convincing. Like I had to talk to some folks for like 6 months in order to convince them that was what was, that the situation was as dire as it was. And I had to like, build up data and information and show that was the case. And then also convince them that the plan, made sense to do it, to kind of like take that approach. Eventually, people came on board, and, we were able to like right the ship, but like that was, that was a really bad situation. So, neglect, I think, is probably one of the worst things that can happen. And it can address all those things you talked about. It's like no tests, no run books, no documentation, institutional, and then, anything that was just like institutional knowledge just gone because of like, people like leaving and layoffs or whatever. All those can leave you in a really bad spot if you don't keep your eye on it.
Yeah. What do you think about having zero technical debt?
I don't think that's possible. I think the minute you ship perfect software, it acquires a little bit of debt that first month, because like what I said before, like the time causes debt no matter what. The systems you build on top of, change, the libraries you depend on start to have security vulnerabilities. The vendor you're integrating with, API, compatibility starts to shift. Like, software is not static. It's constantly changing. If you're not constantly staying on top of it, it literally starts to rot away. And there are some systems that still somehow manage to keep going on for a long, long time without any intervention, but they tend to be like isolated things, batch processing, file formats that don't change. You have to be, for software to like not need maintenance, it requires like living in a very isolated kind of environment.
Yeah. I've thought that if you have zero technical debt, you're not really making the right decisions as well. Like you're not balancing it, right? There's some things that, yes, it's tech debt, but you have to accept it. Like everything's going to be okay. You mitigate rather than taking care of it completely. Oh yes.
For sure. Some things are always more important than other things. And that changes over time too. Like, so look, I think we've all made the kind of decisions like, look, I know that this implementation is only going to scale to like 2,000 or 3,000 concurrent users. We only have 100. We only have 100 users. We may never have 1,000 users. Let's just ship it, test it, get it working, get the interaction we want. And if we have to scale it later, we have a ticket in the backlog that says, this thing only can scale to this. If it gets above this, like start thinking about it.
Yeah, that's right. But you have a really great problem to have at that case, right?
Absolutely.
Like, this thing's being used. Yay. Let's make sure that continues. Oh.
I always think of the Slack anecdotes. The first version they built had to be completely thrown away and re-architected because they had more scale than they expected. And they had to do the entire thing again because they reached a next level of scale. And there really are different purposes that the software has to serve. And the trade-offs you make at the scale they have are so different from, it's going to run on one server and it'll handle 1,000 to 1,500 concurrent users. So yeah, fascinating.
For sure. Yeah. Look, Netflix was also like that. They've thrown away their software at least 2 or 3 times, maybe more at this point. Their entire business models changed multiple times. And I have no compunction about throwing away software. Once it's like served its purpose, but folks get kind of like attached to their software too. They get their ego wrapped up in it or something. I don't know, but you can't feel that. You can't feel that way about it. It's if it did what it was supposed to do, it got you where you needed to be, then you need to like do something else. Awesome, victory. That's you've won the game.
Yeah.
Well, and we were talking about Ben's question was about testing and documentation, hardening tech debt, right? We covered a lot of tech debt. We had a conversation earlier today with someone when we were talking about how AI can help with a lot of these things. So documentation, people are just lazy. There's no time at the end. Even writing unit tests, TDD might be an ideal state, but test after development is more common than TDD. And then no testing is the most common. But AI actually can generate tests, it can generate documentation, it can read and understand code bases, it can look for hardening opportunities, and it can even fix tech debt. Whether it should, hard to say, and maybe it's like limit the scope, limit the capabilities, make sure a human's always in the loop. But that's just one example. I'm just curious. I'm sure you've used AI a bunch at this point, and I'm wondering from your experience, where do you see it having that day-to-day impact and not just hype?
So that's exactly how I'm using it. I'm pretty pro AI. I use it every day. I'm mostly a Cloud Code user, but I switch my tooling every 2 or 3 months too, it feels like. I have AI agents and skills for Claude to do test-driven development. I have other ones set up to, define technical architecture and to define a plan for like a feature. I've got it integrated with my ticketing system, Linear. I've got some Linear skills. So I help it build tickets. I help it define the outcomes. I help it, have it do a TDD cycle on a really small chunk of like well-defined functionality. I'm mostly focused now when I'm using AI. What I tend to do is define like interfaces, public interfaces between modules or like REST APIs or whatever the interface may be, what the test criteria is and how it should be tested. And I don't usually, I'm worried less and less about the internals, about like how that happens, as long as it meets the exit criteria I define. And part of the exit criteria for that is updated documentation and additional like contextual documentation for the feature. So I'm using it for all of that, and you know, it's pretty cool because like I can do more quickly.
Yeah, and you can, if your exit criteria includes things like non-functional requirements, you can do security checks, you can do performance checks, you can do load testing checks. It's all just depends on what you need to cover with it, and it's all then it just becomes contract-driven development or spec-driven development, which I think all of us have favored at a time in our careers anyway, and more lately. And then the implementation is just a detail, and it's sometimes nice to not have to deal with humans as part of the equation. And it's evolving, of course, but AI still gets it wrong and can get it very badly wrong at times.
So, but what I found is what I'll do is you know, after a chunk of work comes in, and I try to keep it like under like 500 line kind of changes, and I'll review it myself, and I'll go, wait a minute, that is just like not right. Like, so I'll like just delete it, get reset hard, and I will go back and redefine the exit criteria and the specification, and I'll give it another try. And usually it's right the second pass. So, you know, I don't feel precious about code that AI has written, for sure. And, you know, even less than my own code.
Yeah, that's a good approach. I like it.
Yeah. So I think we got in our obligatory AI question. So, you know, good job, everybody. We did it.
We're current. We're with it.
Yeah. Dave, what's something you wish more leaders or engineers truly understood about technology right now?
So I think that the unit cost of line of code is gone way down, and it's going to continue to go down. But the actual cost of functioning software that people use hasn't gone down that much. So what I suspect is we're going to get more richer features, but we're not going to have more like full size software. I think so like that's like kind of one class of software. I think the other class of software is what I'm hearing people call disposable software, which I think we've all written. Like, how many times I written like one-off scripts to like suck some data out of a database and transform it and throw it into an Excel file so I can make a presentation of like why we need to do something. The cost of that is gone to zero. Like, I mean, like it's basically the disposable software, which used to take, you know, an hour or two to like put together. Now that the cost of that's zero. But like software, like as a product software, man, like you have to have humans paying attention to customers and figuring out what they need, and no AI, as far as I can tell, is going to figure that out. And that process of figuring that out and then turning it into something usable, we can do more iterations and we can make the features better because we can produce more code faster. But like the end product is still going to take as long as it's going to take. It's just like, I think the quality in terms of like feature is going to just go up. And I also think there's like an infinite demand for software. Like, a lot of people are hand wringing about the end of software engineering. I think that's crazy. Like, I think you look anywhere where you see anything inefficient, you're like, I could write some software for that. Like, and it's never going to go away. And I think there's always going to be people who are problem solvers who see problems that need to be solved and can help put software in the line of that problem.
I love it. Optimistic.
Yeah, very optimistic. And I think it holds true to, you know, probably all the three of us, we've had this thought before. It's like the writing of code, the software is the easy part. It's all the stuff around it. It's the people management. It's defining the problem. It's understanding what's that true outcome. What is it? How is it really providing value to your customer bottom line, et cetera, right? And I think that's what you're saying is writing the software becomes even easier now, even quicker to iterate. It's just making sure that you're churning out the right code and there's, a business backing for that. Yeah.
A million lines of code that solves no one's problem isn't, even if it costs zero, isn't particularly useful. Yeah.
No, not at all.
Well, I saw a video recently. I was talking to Ben about this that presented AI as just the next higher level language. So you created assembly language, then C, and you just keep going up the chain. And AI is just a new way to turn what you write into. It's a very strange syntax because it's very much like natural English, but it just turns it into the same stuff under the hood, right? And it's using intermediary languages, obviously, because you tell it to do that. But it's an interesting take.
Maybe we'll end up there. I think where we're at right now, at least for the next year or two, anyway, is you need people who actually understand what makes good software and understand that the software actually does what it's purported to do. That may be less and less the case, but I still think I don't think you're ever just going to tell AI to do something and it will like whole cloth decide to do it itself. I think AI will be used to make software, and that software is probably going to be human readable code. But I think, people are probably going to pay less and less attention to it if it works.
Yeah. Hey, Dave, what do you think about the idea that with this rapid introduction of AI to help generate code, that it's the early career folks that'll probably suffer the most compared to people that have actually written code?
So I think this is a real concern because I think, I'm sure you guys are using these tools too. And it feels a lot more like managing a junior developer or an offshore team or something like that than it does actually like writing code. You have to be very explicit about what your expectations are, about the tools to use, about a million decisions that, like, if your vibe coding is like, give me something that does something, like, who knows what you'll end up with. Right. It takes a long time. It takes decades to like build the skills required to manage a team as a technical leader. And you have to the skills we've built up traditionally have been by doing it and failing multiple times and living the pain and having it ingrained in our souls. Yes. But I think that the younger folk coming up are going to be okay. But I think the path they use to get to the pain is going to be different. And I think they're going to have to level up skills that they weren't expected to earlier. Whereas other skills they didn't have to pay attention to won't matter as much. I think it'll be something like that. I think it's going to be a rough transition, though. I do think it's going to be a rough transition. Yeah. But look, people who are interested in solving problems will always step up to solve problems with whatever tools are in front of them. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yep. Absolutely.
Sorry, my phone's ringing.
No, it's great. It'll be interesting for people listening. No worries. We have one more.
Do you want to take that, Dave?
Yeah.
No, it's a spam call, and Michelle got it.
Oh, awesome. We have one more regular question before we jump into our rapid fire 5 questions. So, last regular question, and then Ben will start with our rapid questions. What is one controversial opinion you hold about software architecture?
Oh, I think that one architecture is better than another. So like if I've recently gotten we can have a well-curated monolith and that's better than microservices, or microservices are better than monoliths. It depends. It depends. And, just like picking one flavor of architecture and saying it's the best thing ever is like not useful. It's not even a useful discussion. What is, it's really about talking about outcomes and then talking about whether what you're doing is going to help you get to the outcome you're after.
Yeah. I'm actually going to make Ben answer that same question in a minute. I want to hear your controversial opinion because I just thought of mine. which is 99% of the companies that use Kubernetes shouldn't. There's mine.
Bold. I don't know if it's that high. I think it's easily 50% though.
Yeah, I had to go with a big bold number because maybe someone just clicked like the EKS button in AWS and just spun up an instance. So now they're using it.
All the cool kids are doing it.
Yeah. Ben, controversial opinion.
My controversial opinion is I think that stored procedures have a bad rap. I really like the idea of stored procedures, and I think that we've done such a strong shift away from them is unfortunate. I don't know how to prove that out. It's just I'm just gonna say there's a place for them.
I think that's genuinely controversial, and like I think I would argue with you for a long time.
I love it.
I'm feeling I'm on the spot a little bit for this one, so I'm glad I hit the nerve. I would imagine that any listener would probably like, what's he talking about? But maybe I'll come up with my, a whole set of evidence on why maybe there's a place for them. Yeah.
Maybe so. All right.
Ben. Now that you've had a little fun with me, Dave, this is the lightning round. This is when Noah puts in a bunch of cool sound effects and flashes behind us.
Sounds awesome.
It is. It's awesome. Okay, here we go. Lightning round. What's the buzzword or phrase you'd love to ban from consulting forever?
Best practices.
Wow. Yes. I remember you.
I rant about this. I've been ranting about this for decades.
Yes,
so it's not a new thing. There are no such thing as best practices. There are contextually, optimal practices.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Yeah. I'm glad.
Which is not very sexy, but
I remember the first time I heard you say that, probably 10 years ago, and I was a little shocked, and now it completely makes sense. So yeah, Perfect. All right, number 2. What is a small habit or tool that makes your workday 10x better?
So I started a couple years ago using the iPhone to dictate a end of day journal to myself about what I did, about what I'm gonna do next, what I'm concerned about, and I transcribe it. And lately I've started feeding that into an LLM to give me like weekly summaries and then monthly summaries. It helps me not lose track of the things that are, at the end of the day, I know are important, but are easy to get lost in the shuffle when you're just dealing with 1,000 different things.
Great idea. I might have to take that up.
Yeah. So you're feeding them to LLM. How are you typically processing these?
So I'm literally going to the iPhone's memo app. I go transcribe, copy, go over to Claude, paste, say, please summarize this daily, this daily ledger or this daily, log.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I'm doing. It's not high tech at all.
I get you. Yeah. And how about before Claude? Were you
before Claude? I was the transcription's been there since I started, so I was just saving them as text files, and then I would grep or search them or whatever, and I would try to hand summarize them, every week or so. It's way easier now with LLM.
I bet that's fantastic. I keep a daily journal, and some of it's like that, and I find it's a wonderful tool. So yeah, I'm with you. You touched upon this a bit earlier, but I think I really want you to focus on you. It's think back to a big career mistake or a funny fail. What happened?
I can give you a funny fail, but the outcome was good. So the funny fail is I once tried to write a ORM in VB6 on top of Active Record because I hated Active Record.
Okay.
And it totally failed. This was 98, 99. But because I had to go into work over the weekend to back that out and just do it, the traditional way, My now wife, Michelle, was in the office with, her son and her dog trying to like wrap up some work, and we got to chatting. And so I think in some way this led to me eventually getting married. So,
oh, wow. That is
a fail,
awesome.
But
I had no idea what an ORM was in 1998 or 99. That's early days for ORMs, I would say. That's at least.
Yeah. So I come from Power Builder and 4GLs, and it was just driving me crazy. So like this was like, yeah.
All right. Number 4, what is the next big thing in tech consulting? And no, you can't say AI.
Oh, so I think I kind of hinted at this, and this isn't AI directly, but this is second order effective AI. As a consultant, you can now solve much smaller problems than you could ever solve before, because you can do them more quickly. So in other words, I think there's like a mountain of like the size of Mount Everest of challenges businesses have that could be automated, that no one's bothered to automate because, spending a couple $100 an hour for somebody to like implement it, they just couldn't afford. I think it's doable now. And on the other end, I think there's a whole class of problems. This is more like for the big 4 kind of consulting places, things like IRS, rewrite, because it's on old COBOL systems or whatever. Those things fail all the time and cost billions of dollars. I suspect those massive re-architecture projects, like for government scale or large corporation scales, are now way more possible than they were before. And because you can, with the right team and the right folks leveraged the right way, I think you can automate a good chunk of it. Which means, like, if you think about that, you just like took your potential market and just exploded it in terms of like big things that can be done and small things that can be done, or medium-sized things you can do with a much, much smaller team. So like, I think the opportunities are, I don't think people quite realize the level of opportunities there are getting to be opened up for software, not for doing like software products, but like, software for businesses that have automation problems that you can solve in a very custom way for folks for not nearly as much money anymore. Very exciting.
You can get past the politics, right?
Yeah. Well, or get past the folks being, thinking it's going to, I think on some level the problem's going to be convincing people that it's not going to cost as much as they think it is going to cost.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Dave, if you could instantly master one new skill to make you a better consultant, what would it be?
Oh, you know what? I think I hinted at this earlier. I really struggle taking what I know to be a fact from like experience and instinct and breaking it down for people about why it makes sense and why it's a good idea. So like I have to spend a good chunk of time like constituting what I mean by what I say and allowing people who don't have the context I have to like come along the journey with me. And if I could just like flip a switch and like do that, oh, that'd be amazing. Because like, that's like, it's, I wouldn't say it's not fun, but it's like, it's frustrating when, you have a message you're trying to land and it's not landing and you can see it's not landing. And you got to go back and rework the message until people understand what you're talking about. I run into this all the time. I think it comes with any level of expertise. I know I've talked to experts in different things, like scientists and doctors and stuff. It's the same kind of situation. They're like, well, this and reasons, it's obvious. Like, it's not obvious to me. So being able to take that expertise that's seems obvious, not obvious, and then decompose it. If I could just like have a superpower to let me do that without effort, that would be amazing.
Yeah. Well, one of the things you really leaned on in this conversation was analogies, right? Which storytelling. I would say that storytelling probably really lends itself to trying to share your thoughts with somebody who has to understand your convincing argument in a way. But I know what you mean. Somebody recently was just talking about that gut instinct. Like you get to a point in your career where, oh yeah, it's just in my gut, I know that this is right or this is wrong. I just know.
So that if you work with people who know you and trust you, a lot of times people are willing to, like if you worked with a team for a long time and you're like, yeah, this is just not the way to go, they're not even going to question you. But if you're coming in cold, or you're working with folks who don't know you and trust your judgment, you have to take that gut feeling and then turn it into like a narrative and reasons and facts and data.
Yes.
Yeah. AI can help you crystallize your thoughts and distill them. You can tell it what the audience you need to convince, and it can help you find the salient points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. With as many M dashes as you could ever hope for.
Yeah.
Lots of bullet points. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, this is great. This has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much, Dave, for joining us on this journey through consulting and non-consulting, all the stuff.
Awesome. It was great talking to you. It's always fun catching up.
Yeah, absolutely.